Hello,
Oh,
welcome to CarCast. I'm Matt, the moderator, DeAndre, here with Bill Goldberg.
gotta call you back. I'm on my podcast. Sorry.
There you go.
There you
uh,
go.
Phones are ringing, sitting in, we're mixing things up. If you guys are watching on the YouTube side, Bill's in the kitchen, taking a little break from working on the ranch. And I've moved locations in the warehouse. I look like I'm sitting in an engine compartment of a Mustang.
I'm telling
Wasn't
you,
planned.
it
It's just
is
where I
a
moved the desk.
perfect setup. It's killer. It's unique. It's different. It looks like you're a supercharger coming out of the hood of it.
It kind of does. Um, Yeah, so you're kind of running around on the property getting stuff done. This is the nature of having the ranch, the animals and the everything there.
It
It's
would be nice if my garage was my only responsibility on this property, but
yeah.
unfortunately, with my ability or my inability to coexist with the human race, I don't like a bunch of people on my property. Therefore, I take care of all the tasks, pretty all the tasks, most of the tasks.
Yeah.
Quite obviously, Wanda takes care of everything at the barn, but grass has got to be cut, weed eating's got to be done, trees have got to be cut down, burn, chip, whatever you may have to do. I do all of those things.
Yeah.
So she left town yesterday morning for 9 days up to Canada. And I got the house to myself, along with the dogs and every kind of animal you would expect. But so it's 6 o'clock this morning. I fired the weed eater up and went nuts. Now, the one caveat is that with that weed eater, I have destroyed 3 of my windows at my house. Um,
Oops.
yeah, so I don't yeah. Instead of the lawman, Wanda's calling me the lawn man.
Yeah. Have Expel come over and PPF those windows. That way,
It ain't, I'll tell you what, it's got to be something more than a PPF because those rocks are traveling at an extremely high rate of speed. And
yeah.
man, completely shattered 2 of my sliding glass doors that are
Oh,
8 feet tall. I mean, it's just ridiculous, but it is what it is. Fortunately, it's a double pane glass and it only broke one pane. So it's still existing. But let's just say that I've been up since 6 o'clock this morning doing those to-do list things. And yeah, I haven't made it out to the garage yet. So today we had a little different back setting.
when Wanda goes home to visit family in Canada, the animals that she has there, she must have people come in and help a little bit taking care of them because some of them are, they're fostered and they're underdeveloped, they're babies, they're or something,
They,
right? Like
they all just die. It's
she goes
just getting
away, they
new
all
ones.
die. She comes
When she
back.
gets back in town, we just get new ones. But
Just
no,
kidding.
no, she's got all kind of people coming over, taking care of different animals. It was ironic because yesterday at 5 o'clock in the morning, as I was dropping her off at the airport, she got a text about 2 baby snow leopards.
Yeah.
And she would have them in her care right now. She was home, but she's in Canada. So
Yeah.
that was really tough for her not to turn around and come back because that's obviously a rarity. So hopefully they're still
Yeah.
available. She gets back and
And
yeah,
and and just to be clear for you guys that are listening, and we'll get into car stuff in a second, was this isn't like a collection of animals per se. A lot of the animals end up there because they are either underdeveloped or need rehab, or like the giraffe was one of the I think the smallest recorded
yeah, and it
giraffe
had
born and
broken
rejected by
legs.
its and broken legs and rejected by its mother or something. So they, spent I don't know how long you guys had that thing bringing that thing back to life and by the way, super healthy and, it's going to grow to be huge. And I don't know where its permanent home's going to be, but
Next door.
next door. Okay. Well, then I'm sure
It's,
Wanda could go and
he,
see them all the time.
she literally walked him through the gate to
Yeah.
our neighbor's house. And yeah, she's got a 501c3. She takes care of critically endangered animals. And she's kind of the last stop before euthanization.
Yeah.
So, it's a sad deal and it sucks. It sucks, but she's got a huge heart. She pours everything she has into these animals, and then she's got like a 95% success rate. So she nurses these animals back to health, and then off they go back to their owners. And sometimes we end up acquiring them, and sometimes they go back. But like yesterday or the day before yesterday, we had to euthanize a peacock.
Oof.
Had a
Yeah.
broken leg and it couldn't be rehabilitated. And I mean, it sucks. But at the end of the day, it's a cool thing that she does. She saves a lot of animals, and the emotional scars that she brings back home are easy to deal with.
Yeah, but like you said, she does far more good over there, and the large animals that don't have a place to go that go there, she also has to bring in specialists or doctors or vets to, but listen, I know Wanda. I've talked to her a bit when we were all together at Barrett Jackson, and I've seen her do her stuff. If she needs to sit there on the floor with
Oh,
24 hours a day with a baby bottle feeding, she will do it.
she'll do it.
And uh the I can't imagine how much energy and mental capacity it drains to get it all done. But anyway,
I got to let her know that I'm actually still here on property sometime because she's so engulfed into what she's doing. But I would have it no other way, man. It's a lifelong calling, and she does a lot of good. And it's cool, man. It's cool. It's a lot
um,
of fun. And now, I
yeah,
told you about Presley's back.
yeah.
Okay. And Presley has teamed up with Adam because while Presley was gone, Adam took ownership of my garage. And so now it's a 2-on-1 kind of thing. So now it's Adam and Presley against my garage. So every
And
day,
Adam and Presley are what?
well, Presley is a Paradavid. She's a critically endangered deer, and Adam is a Urix. I don't know how to spell it or even where they come from, but he's white and he's got giant antlers, and he's pretty lethal. But they're a lot of fun, man. They're petable, and like I said, they have an affinity for the plants of the garage, and so at least I have company all the time now.
Yeah. I've seen a few of the animals walking around back there, peeking
Yeah,
in. They're
actually,
curious.
Presley was at the house yesterday morning. She somehow got in the gate, and I think, was about to take a dip in the freaking pool. But yeah, it's an interesting place we have here. But enough of that.
Enough of that. All right. Let me tell you guys about Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season, from baseball and golf to soccer and all the top fights at UFC, MMA, and boxing. They have every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker or over 150 different slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. That's BLEAV. Bet online, the game starts here.
And did you know that their sister company was the first company to offer odds on motocross? And that's sportsbetting.ag.
I
Just a
didn't
little,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah,
I didn't
kind
know
of cool
that.
because last week they hooked me up with uh, Hayden Deegan,
Yeah.
and he and I did a little Well, we were supposed to do a collaboration on social media. But yeah, man, that's pretty cool that you can place odds on motocross. That's
Yeah.
You can do
That is
just
cool.
about anything. You can even bet on cars going around Goldberg's garage.
That would be fun. What starts today? What doesn't start today?
Well, yes, yes. Actually, it's time. It's 2 laps timed around the garage. I mean, I've had, whether it's the Willys versus the 6-wheeler versus my freaking tractor versus Gage's Bronco and all kind of different BS, man. But we're doing over unders on car prices and stuff like that. But anyway, that's a different subject. But hey, let's you. I saw the notes for today's show. Let's talk about the death of NASCAR.
I was just bringing up the photo. I'm going to bring up this photo as well.
Now,
I want to.
when I was at the
Yeah.
last race that was a NASCAR race, I had a conversation with the people who own the track um, about the same subject,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a very favorable response.
So what
Let's
we're
just
talking
say
about is we're looking at the prototype all electric race car, the NASCAR series race car. Kind of looks like a wagon, kind of has sort of an SUV, like a CUV, SUV slammed look to it.
I think it's badass. I mean, taking it upon itself individually, the car, I think it's different. It's cool, visually.
I agree. I think it looks cool. I don't know how NASCAR fans will respond. I admittedly am not a huge NASCAR fan. I see you shaking your head, but if this was something that you brought out to, uh, the parking lot at SEMA and say, "Hey, we've got this crazy all electric beast that we're gonna do Pikes Peak and some road course on, and we're gonna drift it in the front parking lot of SEMA. Do you want to go for a ride?" I'd be like, "Hell yeah!"
That's different. That's a completely different subject. We're not talking about a sport that has over 100,000 people in the stands, clamoring for that big V8 sound, right?
Right. Totally. And that's a big part of it, right? Like,
It's a huge part
I
of it.
mean,
It's not a big
Formula E is still trying to gain some traction with fans, but it's just a blip on the radar compared to even IndyCar, God forbid F1. And they're attracting some talent. I mean, as far as drivers and stuff, but it's just not catching on. And they have some sound. It's just not the sound we're accustomed to. It's a different experience. But I don't know. This car is not just, excuse me, it's not just electric. It's part of NASCAR's push to be sort of a net zero s- organization in the sense. So
What are they
what's
going to do with all the haulers bringing all the cars driving around the
I
country every
know
freaking weekend?
they're probably gonna have to reach out to companies like
Tesla.
Nikolai or whatever that has like the hydrogen powered electric vehicle, like something. But the bodies that would normally be carbon fiber, this isn't even carbon fiber. This is I some flax based composite material. It's a little heavier, they said, but I don't even know what that means. I mean, can you eat it?
No, but
I don't.
the only positive I saw was it's got over 1,300 horsepower.
Yes. Now it has to compensate for some added weight. So whereas uh the engines currently can make 900 horsepower, although they're sort of detuned to be 670 horsepower, and I think
For
they
track.
max out at Daytona and Talladega at 510 horsepower. So this could max out at, I think it was, yeah, I think you were right. I think it was like 1300 uh
Does that lead us to
1341
believe that
horsepower.
it's twice the curb weight of the existing NASCAR?
That's a good question. Is it twice the weight? I'd have to figure that out. I don't even know if they no, it's only about 500 pounds more. It's about 4,000 pounds, and a cup car is about 3,500 with fuel.
Damn, look at the power to weight ratio then.
Yeah, no,
Compared
seriously. And what's interesting though is they have the battery kind of set up where the fuel tank would be, so it has the same balance. But if you think about uh as cars race, and I had this conversation with Tommy Kendall a while ago. Like we were looking at one of his old race cars, and I was there with Adam Carolla, and he's like, Tommy's like, this has a cockpit adjustable sway bar. He's like, so throughout the race, I can adjust the sway bar. Adam's like, but I don't even know what I'm doing. Why would you need that? And Tommy said, because throughout the race, as you deplete fuel, you lose some weight and you can change the handling characteristics to compensate. And I was like, oh, that's right. That's super smart. Adam's like, I wouldn't know what to do, but I totally get it. I would need more experience in training and going, hey, maybe add a little here when you start to feel it, or just doing the math on it. And in the vintage races, we don't have like a crew chief talking in your ear. So no one's like, hey, you're, you know, add, add a little bit of sway bar or remove a little bit of sway bar. Nobody's saying that to you, even to coach you, because if you're distracted, so you just do it. But in the EV, you know, using a battery doesn't make it lighter. It's the same. So maybe sort of those aspects of the car would change some of the driving, not to mention just how it puts down torque and things like that. It's kind of interesting. Um, I I don't see it. Certainly, I don't see it as a replacement to what we see today. I could see something concurrently, maybe even a shorter race on the same weekend or something, or even this in the same day, run something before or after. It's an opening act for, is how I see it. You know, if you've got a big race going out there, can you run some of these cars for a few laps, a short race, 10 laps, just to see how people respond to it?
You're gonna hate it.
Yeah, they're probably gonna hate it.
And I'm not saying that from a personal perspective of where my opinion lies. I just truly believe that segment's gonna hate it. They're not gonna enjoy it.
I think so. I think it would take a long time for this to be acclimated, and I think it needs to be something separate the way Formula E is, and see what kind of audience. Maybe it brings in a new audience or a younger audience or something. I don't know. Or also, it could be something interesting on the development side for manufacturers. We've certainly seen racing influence street cars from the first car ever produced,
Yeah.
the first car ever raced. But what does that mean for manufacturers to develop? Can we
I have
get
a better idea for NASCAR. Spend your time and money trying to develop a vehicle that will propel itself on moonshine.
I think we already had that. I think we
You want to satiate your crowd? There you have it.
yeah.
Free advice.
Uh, Something that's come up a few times in the past, especially when we were at Barrett Jackson. Sammy Hagar was selling his, well, was going to sell his LaFerrari, and then there was an issue with the battery, and they got it repaired. They got a new battery in there, and it's moving to the October auction. But one of the things that has come up with us has been, what is the collectability of any of the hybrid or battery powered supercars like LaFerraris and McLaren P1s and stuff like that. And there's been several other Ferraris now down the line, and McLaren's new Artura. What does it do? And the fear is the battery degrades. We know it will over time, like any battery, like your iPhone, like anything else. But what do you do in 5 years, 10 years? Cars are trading at auction. Uh, Ferrari wants to start to get ahead of this in a sense. They're saying they put together, which is essentially an extended warranty program for the batteries. And the batteries will be able to be replaced in their 8th year and 16th year of the vehicle's life. And as battery technology changes, you will get the advantage of that new battery technology, and they will promise you will get the same or better performance out of that battery. And they don't know in 16 years from now when they're replacing your battery again, they don't know what battery technology is going to be. Maybe the battery technology is going to last 50 years, so they don't know. So they're trying to do this as a way of preserving the performance. They're saying they, quote, preserve the performance and excellence of their cars, when really they're trying not to screw people on resale value. Like, I don't know how many of these cars are going to start showing up at auction for top dollar if you have a $200,000 battery, or so, like in the case of like a LaFerrari, you got a
Mean
multi-million
250.
dollar car, like what do you do? You know? Now, as cool as this sounds and as forward thinking as this sounds to Ferrari, it's also Ferrari. So it's not free.
Bingo.
It is not free. They It's about $7,500, but the way I'm reading this, it says $7,500 a year.
Wow.
So yeah, you're gonna be into this for a little bit of money. And it's just kind of a weird thing. Like on the really big expensive supercars, Bugattis, and uh, eh, these cars that have such expensive maintenance costs. If we were talking, you and I were talking about Craig Jackson a minute ago off the air. Craig is a fan of Bugatti. He's got his Veyron. He just went and got the new one, did the whole trip, the trip to France, did the road trip there, brought the car here. He's worked hard. He's deserved it. He loves that car. But when he was on the podcast years ago and had his Veyron, he was talking about, it's like, man, he's just like, the battery is this much money and the brakes are $30,000. The windshield is 10,000. You get a crack in the windshield, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. It's just ridiculous to own that car. And I'm like, yeah, these cars, you go and you get a new car and it's $3 million. And every owner of the car gets so angry about the maintenance costs. But if you just said, the car's $3.5 million and everything is included for 10 years of its life, I don't think people would bat an eye on that, because paying 3.5 million up front for a car that was probably 3 million and go, everything's included, just feels better than going, shit, I cracked the windshield, the brakes got to be done. And I don't want to fix this because it's $30,000. I'm just going to stop driving it, or maybe I'll take it to auction. And it's like, it just gets so crazy and everyone feels terrible about it. And like, of course, I'm talking about a select few in the world who can afford these cars. But it came to my attention because a Koenigsegg, the Jesko, one of them, it's been in the news, caught on fire, and Koenigsegg went, and the owner, who's safe, reached out and said, have at it. Feel free to investigate the issue. And Koenigsegg issued a statement, said, anybody who has these cars, there's only a handful, please don't drive them. And we're going to figure it out. And not like they're really driving them that much anyway. So it said, please don't drive them. We'll figure it out. And they got it down to like a hydraulic fluid line. And they said, looking at what was on the ground and inspecting it, and every seal, every nut, every bolt, there wasn't any other leaks. So what was catching fire? It wasn't anything electrical. They saw a faulty fastener, a connector, if you will, on a hydraulic line. And they said, this is going to be the issue. So everybody with a Koenigsegg, we will fix this issue. And the guys whose car was on fire, we're sending you a new Koenigsegg Jesko.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it, right?
100%.
Look, if the car didn't burn to the ground, they would have said, we're going to we send it back. We're going to fly it home. We're going to replace the engine or something, but it burnt to the ground. So they said, you need a new car,
I saw it in flames, not that one.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, we're not going to fix it. You get another one, and Koenigsegg, I guess, can definitely use that to dig deeper into any potential issues with the car. But that's what the experience should be when you're spending $3-4 million on a car.
Absolutely. And it should be nothing short of that.
Right. So anyway, kudos to Koenigsegg for stepping up and taking care of that. Now, I don't know how it actually went down, but the version that we're reading sounds like a satisfying end to a tragic story. But anyway, there's that.
Only tragic if you were the car, because thankfully the dudes got out.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, now Porsche is definitely making some changes as we're seeing car companies backtrack a little bit on their EV plans, some more than a little bit. Porsche hasn't really changed their course. The beloved Cayman and Boxster, the 718 Cayman and Boxster that we knew were going to be replaced by an EV version, that's still moving forward. And now we're looking at the end of those gas-powered vehicles by around probably by the end of 2025. So another year and a half left at the most. Those gas powered variants will be gone. Now, it stands to reason they will make something new that's an EV to replace those cars, but we just don't know exactly if it's going to be an electric Cayman and an electric Boxster. Uh, uh, Certainly, because of the success of those cars, something similar to that. But Porsche's also really kind of struggled with, excuse me, struggled with those cars becoming so much better. It's really kind of nipping on the heels of the 911. The balance of those cars, the small, lightweight, lightweightness, is that right? uh, of those vehicles, because the 911's gotten bigger and bigger, and these were small. It's kind of the new version of what the old 911 was. So for them to say, we're going to replace it with some sort of EV version of a vehicle, now they can go after 911 performance, even maybe exceed 911 performance on some levels, but you have to commit to an electric vehicle. So it's not quite, it wouldn't be quite the same selling proposition, right?
It's an option, as long as it's an option and not the end all, right?
Right.
I
But
think it would be received well.
right.
I think it's all in the delivery. Anything is, these days. And a second ago, we were talking about all these supercars and how the manufacturers should take care of those people who fork over those millions of dollars. And, giving your consumers an option is all they can ask for. And kudos to Porsche for doing that, because I know in a second you're going to tell me that the 911, still staying the way that it is.
It is to a point,
To a
which
point.
is the 911 hybrid, which we've covered it on the show. We definitely dug into it with on the show with Alistair, but the 911 hybrid. Now, Porsche's doing a smart thing, of course. They're saying we need to experiment with hybrid technology, but we definitely can't get rid of the gas engine components of 911s. Certainly not for quite some time. So they're taking one car in their lineup, the GTS, and they're making it a GTS T hybrid because it's a turbo with hybrid technology. And they were very smart on how they did this. And again, we can get into this more with Alistair, but there are two electric motors. It's a gas engine, single turbo in the back of the car, as you would normal. It's rear wheel drive. You can get an all wheel drive version, but the electric motors do not power the wheels, and the brakes don't even, they're not regen brakes. So it's not a different feel on the brakes. They want this to be very much the feel of a 911. They did an electric motor on the transmission, and they did an electric motor on the turbo for the gas engine. So so on the lower RPM, when you need to spool up that turbo, for example, so what happens is the electric motor on the transmission is what fills in the turbo lag, right? Because now it's a single turbo larger. So the electric motor on the transmission fills in that turbo lag. And then on a high speed, at full throttle, when the turbo is spooling and it's going fast, when you decelerate, it loses that momentum. So the electric motor on the turbo then moves that turbo again. So you get that instantaneous, it keeps it spooled up, essentially, is what it does. It's a super smart technology. Now, unlike the Corvette E-Ray or even the NSX, this doesn't have like an all electric mode. It doesn't shut off the gas engine and your first 30 miles an hour or whatever is in quiet EV mode. It's not meant to do that. The two electric motors are there to supplement and support what the engine's trying to do. And instead of going to small twin turbos, which has good low end power, but then loses a bit on the high end, they went to a single turbo, larger single turbo. So you get that mid range and high end, high RPM power, and the electric motor in the transmission fills in that low end gap. Now, if you bought a GTS 4, if you bought the all-wheel drive version, it's not electric motors powering the front wheels. It's the normal all-wheel drive system that's in the Porsches, and the same technology, the electric motor on the transmission and on the turbo, apply.
Mhm.
Now, they can also clean
Brilliant.
up the engine. Yeah, it is. They can clean up the engine compartment because the electric motor on the transmission also acts as the starter. So they can eliminate the starter and the weight. The air conditioning unit that's normally mounted up high and run off a belt is now run off of an it's electric powered, so it has a little electric motor, so they can move that into a different location and move it lower, move the weight down. Um, I, Alistair's team is they've got somebody at the press debut, the drive in Spain, and um, we'll have to talk to them and get some feedback on them. But in their write up of it, uh, they're saying it's just fantastic. Now, like you said, the choice, you can get a 911, you can get the Carrera 2, the 4, you get the turbos, you get the GT cars, GT3s, you can get all that stuff. But this is looking like it could be the really, really nice alternative to the daily driver 911. It's
Mhm.
incredibly fast. It's got great power. The technology that they're using is interesting. By the way, the battery for the electric motors is about the size of your normal 12-volt battery. It's not massive. So I think there's only about if I remember this correctly, about 100-pound difference in the car. Um, the the
That's
Yeah, I'll have to double check that to make sure it's right. But 103 pounds difference. The gas engine in the car makes 478 horsepower, and then combined with the electric motors, which add about 53 horsepower, you get 532. Now, it wasn't that long ago that the 911 turbo was 500 horsepower, and before that 400 horsepower. So you're you're getting an interesting amount. Now, the electric motors, they the electric motor on the transmission and the one on the turbo, they're not used really at the same time. I guess they could be, but in theory, they're not supposed to be. The one on the transmission is your low end. The one on the turbo is for deceleration after wide open throttle, and on the high end. Um, so one charges the onboard battery when the other one isn't.
that's bitching.
So on the low end, when you're using that electric motor, the one on
Charge
the turbo is charging the battery. So it's not plug-in or anything. It does it. So it's kind of interesting. Now this is the first time they're executing this type of thing. So we don't know what sort of bugs and stuff are going to happen, but knowing Porsche,
But
it's going to
again,
be
you have choices, and if there are bugs, you can go to a different model, and you can and you can postpone getting into that model until they fix the
yeah,
bugs and have other options for you. I mean, that's all you can ask as a consumer, not somebody telling you exactly what you have to buy.
agree 100%. But anyway, we'll get more information when Alistair's back. He's on vacation.
Gotcha. I got a garage question for you.
Yeah,
All your cars that you have in there, um, obviously, with all the garages that I've had throughout the years, one of my biggest issues with storing these cars is using one of these
yeah,
battery tenders, battery maintainers. What do
yeah,
you what do you do? Right now, we've talked about this a couple different times, and currently I'm using the NOCO products. Right,
yeah.
I have no affiliation with them. I go out and buy all the stuff retail, and I got to tell you, they have great stuff, but it's freaking it gets expensive as shit. All the leads you have to buy, and I mean
Yeah.
it gets pricey. But like, what do you choose?
I use C-Tech.
So
Um,
C-Tech are the ones that come with like the Dodge vehicles,
yeah. So I
come
have
with
C-Tech on
manufacturing.
all the cars here.
Now, do you do that because that's what comes with your Fords?
No, actually, it was with Aaron Hagar. I was talking to Aaron, and Aaron. had done work with them, sort of a spokesperson for them, and I got to really dive deep into the technology and what they're using, and he's got them all over on his cars and his motorcycles and stuff, and he's had luck with them. So, he connected me, and I liked it as well. So I started grabbing the C-Tech chargers, and uh, I, so far I haven't had an issue with them, and I've got them on different types of batteries, like the AGM batteries and the conventional batteries
Uh-huh.
and stuff. So I put them on pretty much anything that I park for any more than, a week or so, basically, because I have them here and it's easy for me. And a lot of my cars, um, I connected to the battery, the quick disconnect that
Yeah, yeah.
C-Tech has.
Mhm.
So, even on, you get a peek behind me, this the Ford Lightning, it has a battery that I mounted under the bed by the rear bumper. The idea was to add a little weight back there. And I just got a little dongle hanging there with a quick disconnect, and when I plug it, I just get underneath the rear bumper, plug it in from there.
Now,
Um,
how about price point? What's the
So
initial?
there's a couple different models, and I don't necessarily think you need the biggest one for each one. I mean, you can get the, sort of the basic battery tender for what you're trying to do. Now, this is a good question though. Amperage is kind of an issue. So I was we were planning to bring the 2021 Mustang Mach 1 to the SEMA show and display it. Now at the last minute, we kind of got shot down by, I don't know, the Teamsters or whatever on running electricity and all kinds of stuff. But the idea was, because we built the stereo in that car, we wanted to be able to power up that car throughout SEMA during the day and demo the stereo and stuff and whatnot. So C-Tech came to me. I called them and said, "How do I power this car? Do I do it with a tender?" And they crunched some numbers and came back and they said, "You need this other larger tender, if you will, a
Jump
charger."
starter?
It wasn't really a jump starter. It's you think of the small battery tenders like what you just held up.
Mhm.
This one is bigger and it's 25 amps. And they're
So
like,
it's
you're like, you can run, yeah. You can run the car off of this in sort of demo mode. You can put it in accessory mode, run 1,000-watt stereo or 2,000-watt stereo. Obviously not at full volume because you wouldn't do that at SEMA anyway. But you could. I do have one of those that I can use to demo the car, put it in a demo mode,
Gotcha.
if you will. And that would get it done. So there's a few options, but yeah, that's a good question. And maybe we should talk to somebody a
It
little bit
is.
more about that.
And I reached out to this company, Astro AI, right? And like I said, Noco's got some great shit. And I've
Yeah.
never really had it. I mean, one or two of them went bad, but I mean, I've had them for 10 years, right? And there's 2 bank and 4 bank and whatever it may be, different amperage. And then they have these jump boxes. I was just curious to see if there was anything out there that had comparable performance, but came in at a lower price point, because like the Noco 5,000 amperage ones, they
Yeah.
come in like $350.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. They're
for a
kind of,
small for a small gimmick like this, that's a load of money. I mean, unless you're, you know, carrying it in your 18 wheeler. I mean, do you really need that type of amperage? And is it really worth that? So this company sent it to me, and I'm going to run it through its paces and hopefully find out, that there's a comparable product out there that comes in a lower price point. But I've wondered about that for years.
yeah.
And that's why I reached out to these guys and just to see if it's convenient and if it actually freaking works. So, um, just
Yeah.
curious. Everybody's
Yeah.
got
No,
the
it's a good question because it's something to think about. And like I think on some of Adam's cars, on the race cars, not all of the batteries are left in the cars. He has like a shelf and he pulls them all out and they all just go to a rack with
but
with
they're all on tenders on that shelf.
and they're all on tenders. Yeah. Now with those cars, it's a little bit easier on some of them, but like he's got the Aston Martin DB9 and that battery is it's under passenger seat in a box, and it's a pain in the ass to get to. And so Aston Martin puts a plug in the trunk that you can plug in their tender and it charges it. But for some reason, it never really worked well. It's like every time you get in that car, even when it was on the tender, it didn't work. So we started like putting the tender on the battery instead of through whatever the electronic wiring system that was in Aston Martin or
Did that
whatever
work?
charger it came with. It just never worked. I don't know what it is. Maybe that car just has a constant draw, but it just eats batteries. If you don't drive it, it just doesn't work. I don't know why, but and that could just be a flaw in his car. I have no idea, but
No, it's
and
not, because everyone's got a freaking car in their garage that does that, that eats
yeah,
batteries and that has a draw and whatever it may be. Because my first TRX is that car.
yeah, yeah,
I have
and
to unplug it from I have to unplug the battery from the terminals. Well, undo the connections from the positive and negative terminal inside of the TRX and charge it in place, but with no connectors on it. And then it's fine. It seems as though there's a draw when the connectors are attached, and nobody can
interesting.
find it. No one can find it.
I wonder if one of these companies like SeaTech could walk you through it and go grab your voltmeter, grab your multimeter or something, and see what the truck is doing, and then hook up the tender and then see what it's doing. And then I don't know if there's a way to do it that way, but it would be
I think
interesting to.
what was happening was, I think the battery fell below the level to where the trickle charger would kick on.
Okay.
For I'm just trying to troubleshoot. I'm trying to figure it
Yeah,
out.
but the smart chargers should know that.
It
Uh,
should.
it
It
should
should.
know that, and it should compensate. Um, yeah, because I like even in the new Mustang, the 21, if I park it for a week and I put the tender on there, it's working. But because the car is still sitting there, after a couple of days, I'll still get the alert on my phone, and it'll say the car's in a sleep mode. It's either drive it or whatever, because it says it's trying to say that the car doesn't know it's on a tender, but because I don't think it's doing it by voltage. I think it's maybe doing it by time or something like that. I don't know how it sends me the alert. I'd be curious to know if somebody knows when my car sends me an alert and says, "Hey, it's in a sleep mode because it hasn't been driven in a while. You might want to start the car." What is that going by? Is it going by the amount of time it hasn't been started? If it's a voltage drop, wouldn't it be more concerned? Wouldn't the car be more concerned and go, "Hey, there's a voltage drop, so maybe, like it's going into a sleep mode." But so to answer your question, like, is there always a little bit of a draw? There is a little bit of a draw in theory with all of these new cars because we have like the key fob. And when you walk up and you touch the door handle and opens the doors, like it's running Bluetooth or something all the time, you know? So like if you parked it for a week, even on the tender, if you walked up to it with your key fob, it may not work the first time because it's in a sleep mode. So you'd have to like click it or grab the handle or fuss with it a little bit to wake the car up. So yeah, there's always some amount of it's got to be some amount of very minimal draw just to like keep Bluetooth happening so you can get into your car.
There has to be.
Yeah, there has to be. But yeah, anyway, it's a good conversation to have with some of these companies and see what are they doing. And yes, going, this is the vehicle I have. What sort of battery tender do I need and how should I run it? And should I disconnect the battery or disconnect, you know, one lead on the battery, however it needs to work. But um
To be continued.
yeah, to be continued. All right, we're gonna wrap things up. Thanks. And again, Bravago, drinkbravago.com is the website. We got the hard seltzers up there. We're in a handful of stores in Southern California. If you're in Southern California, we're going to be at the Taco and Beer Fest this weekend in Long Beach, and you buy your ticket, and it's all you can eat tacos and drinks, and we will have a booth there, and you can come by and try it. So if you haven't even committed to buying it yet, you can come to the Taco and Beer Fest and come
Taste
try it.
test. Find out how wonderful it really is.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Until next time, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.
68 GTX convertible this week.